Well, welcome to another Friday night. As you can see, I'm not in my normal filming location. Kim and I decided to take a short work vacation to get a break and get some rest, but get some work done. So I decided to film here, and I want to do something a little bit differently tonight. We've been going through the 60 characteristics of complex trauma, and one of the common questions that I get from people is, one of the common statements I hear from people is, I grew up in a really good home. I don't think I have complex trauma. So over the last number of years, I've been working in my brain to create a test that will help people get a clear picture or sense of whether or not they have complex trauma. And so tonight and next Friday, I want to give you two tests that I hope will give you insight into whether or not you have complex trauma and how severe that complex trauma might be. And I hope you'll find it helpful, insightful. So let's get started. It's got 64 questions that I want you to answer tonight. So if you have a piece of paper, you can mark down the ones that are true of you, and you'll begin to get a sense by how many are true of you whether or not you have complex trauma and how severe it is. So question one. You tend to be very hard on yourself. After failure, you beat yourself up in your thoughts. You can't forgive yourself and stay angry at yourself. You may even do things to harm yourself. Cutting, burning, banging your head against a wall. Or tapes play in your head. You're stupid, you're a useless failure, you'll never amount to anything, you can't do anything right, you're an embarrassment. Question two. When you go to bed, you sleep with your back to the wall, facing the door. B, you keep a weapon nearby or under your pillow. C, you never fall into a deep sleep. Question three. When sitting in a room at a seminar where you don't know anyone, A, you must sit in the back row so that no one is behind you, but you must sit near a door so that you have an escape route planned. B, you sit in a corner so that you can avoid talking to people. C, you spend the first hour checking everybody out. 4, when visiting a friend or traveling, where you have to sleep in a strange room and bed, A, you don't sleep well for the first night or so. B, you become constipated. C, you aren't as aware as normal of your deeper emotions or body sensations. D, your brain is very busy when you go to bed. And E, your senses are more alert when you go to bed. 5. If someone came up behind you and touched you on the shoulder, you would A, jump out of your skin, B, turn around and hit them as a reflex reaction, C, become instantly angry or afraid, D, take a long time to settle down, and E, you wouldn't see it as an innocent gesture, but as a cruel thing to do. Now you may circle all of those, and that's okay. 6, you have recurring nightmares or flashbacks. You avoid certain areas in your town or certain events because you know they will trigger unpleasant memories. You refuse to talk about certain topics. C, you don't like being alone because that's when the flashbacks break through into your conscious mind. 7, you sometimes, without realizing it, engage in self-soothing behaviors. You rock yourself, you curl up in the fetal position, you tap, you need something in your mouth to suck or chew. 8, when you're at a public seminar or a sporting event where there are public bathrooms, you have a shy bladder. 9, when you are in an intimate relationship, you test people. You say, you don't really love me. B, you pull away from them to see if they will chase you. C, or test C, you try to upset them to see if they will leave you. Test D, you point out pretty or good-looking women or men to them to see how they will respond. Number 10, you defined respect as A, never make me look bad, or B, never rat me out if I am doing harmful, unloving things, or C, take away the negative consequences of my bad behavior, or D, never disagree with me or challenge me, fear me. 11, you define strength as never crying, B, never needing to ask for help, C, always keeping your emotions under control or being very stoic, D, never being vulnerable, E, never admitting you're wrong, F, being able to do cruel things to others without it bothering you. 12, you respond to a compliment by thinking, A, they don't really mean it, they're just saying it to be nice. B, if they really knew me, they wouldn't have said it. C, I wonder what they want. They just said that to manipulate me. D, they say that to everybody, they don't really mean it. Or E, well, they just probably say that to my face, but behind my back, they say very negative things about me. Number 13, you have a fear of getting older because A, you will lose your looks and your body. B, you will need others for help. C, you won't be able to do as much or be as productive. D, you will feel weak and useless. E, you have a deep fear of a debilitating illness or death. 14, you often feel all alone, even when you're with friends or in a crowd. A, you feel like you feel like you didn't belong in your family growing up. B, you attempted to fit in with your peers at school when you were growing up, but you still didn't feel like you totally belong. C, you don't just feel alone today, you also feel lonely most of the time. Now, some of you may need to take a break and just take some breaths. If this is really stirring up stuff, you can always come back and listen to it later. But I'm going to continue. Number 15. If you were shy or an introvert, A, you saw it as a weakness and you hated it about yourself. B, you thought extroverts were better and had more fun. C, you liked alcohol or drugs because they let you become the life of the party, an extrovert. D, or you responded by trying to become invisible and to remain isolated from people. Number 16, you have engaged in risky behaviors. A, because you like the adrenaline rush. B, you didn't want to flat out commit suicide, but you flirted with death. C, you don't think you deserve a good life. D, you have so much pain and anger that you just need to vent it. E, they are the only thing that makes you feel alive. Or F, risky behaviors is what gets you attention and respect. Number 17, when you wake up in the morning, you consciously get yourself angry. Or B, you immediately think of something negative. Or C, you do something to get the adrenaline flowing so that you go from 1,000 RPMs to 10,000 RPMs and remain at that rate until you fall into bed at night. Number 18, if someone is upset or angry, A, you think you must have done something wrong and you immediately feel guilty. Or B, feel responsible to take care of them, to take care of their emotions so that they can settle down. C, you feel a panic and anxiety. It triggers a fear that overtakes you. Number 19, you struggle with your anger. A, you are irritable almost all of the time. B, you explode over the smallest things. C, you need an angry resentment against those who have hurt you. D, you turn your anger on yourself. E, you stuff your anger down deep and try to convince yourself that you don't have any anger issues. Or F, you are very subtle on how you express anger. You give people the silent treatment, withhold love, are sarcastic, take shots at them. Number 20, you struggle with anxiety. You feel anxiety when going out of the house to a social gathering or an appointment. Or B, you obsessively worry about all kinds of things. C, if you are not feeling anxiety, you wonder what's wrong. Anxiety has become your normal. D, any change or unknown causes your anxiety to increase a lot. 21, you have trust issues. You live by the rule to never trust anybody. Or B, you trust people too quickly all at once. Or C, you are suspicious of everybody's motives. Or D, you are always looking for a hidden agenda, assuming that nobody talks to you openly and honestly without an agenda. E, you assume that people don't honestly love you, but are using you in some way. 22, you are a perfectionist. You are never satisfied with yourself or what you do. B, you view the end product as the most important part of any undertaking. C, you don't see a task as finished until the result is perfect. D, you have unrealistic standards. E, you live life by shoulds. I should do this, I should be that way. F, you tell yourself that you are just being responsible, not a perfectionist, that you think things should be done right. That's why you're this way. Or if you're not going to do a job well, then there's no point doing it at all. 23, you have happiness issues. A, you have regularly felt an emptiness inside. B, you have normally experienced more painful emotions than positive emotions like peace or contentment or joy. C, you have believed you would be happy if only you had something, some person, a new position, new circumstances. You believed your happiness was connected to having the right external environment. Or D, you pursued pleasurable experiences hoping that would bring you lasting happiness. 24, you struggle with depression. A, regular or intermittent times of feeling blue, feeling hopeless, wondering what's the point, lacking motivation to do stuff you normally enjoy, not getting pleasure out of things that normally give you pleasure, wanting to avoid life and responsibilities. B, your depression pulls you towards unhealthy behaviors like eating, sleeping, avoiding, procrastinating, isolating, sexual indulgence, anger. 25, you don't handle stress well. A, so stress can come from anything that changes, any unknown, extra responsibilities, whether they're good or bad, or problems. And you respond by stress eating, having trouble sleeping, procrastinating, becoming more irritable, becoming obsessive in your thinking, having higher expectations of others, needing constant distractions. 26. You have a tendency to dissociate or escape into a fantasy world. For some reason, you check out of life when you are feeling overwhelmed or stressed or other intensely painful emotions. Or B, you regularly escape into a fantasy world, TV, books, imagination, just so you don't have to deal with life. 27. You are regularly drawn to drama or chaos. A, you love knowing gossip about others. B, chaos and drama keeps you from focusing on your own problems. Or C, it gets you attention. Or D, it makes you feel excitement. It makes you feel more alive. Or E, routines and structure result in feelings of boredom, and drama and chaos takes you out of that boredom. 28. You struggle with intimacy. You're afraid that if someone gets to know you too well, they will find out you're not much of a catch and leave you. B, you base intimacy on intense feelings and fall in love in a day. C, you go from a person being an acquaintance to a soulmate in a couple days. D, you open up all at once and tell someone you're attracted to everything about yourself. E, you try to take every conversation to an intimate level. 29. You lie when it would just be as easy to tell the truth. A, you regularly exaggerate facts just a bit in order to make the story a little more sensational. B, you tell your partner or your parents 90% of what you did, but you leave out a few key details. C, you regularly tell little white lies. 30. You don't do well with conflict. A, you always just give in and let the other person win just so there won't be a conflict. B, you must win at any price, even if it means lying, being disrespectful, fighting dirty, getting very angry, and intimidating. Or C, you are very afraid of angry people. 31. You resort to manipulation regularly. A, you have a fear of just asking people for what you need. B, you find it very hard to accept other people's no. C, you think you really need to get what you want if you're going to be happy, so you're determined to get it somehow. And D, you are a pro at using guilt, intimidation, gifts, or tears to manipulate people. 32. You have a great fear of failure. A, failure has never been a good thing in your life. It has always resulted in pain, which is punishment, being made fun of, having it used against you in the future, having your face rubbed in it, greater shame. Nothing good has ever come out of failure in your life. Or B, you are pretty sure that if you fail today, people are going to reject you. 33. You tend to be impulsive. You act before you think things through and do things that you later regret. You make decisions based on how you are feeling, not based on careful thinking. C, you say things without very many filters. And D, your impulsivity is worse when you are angry, very happy, stressed, or have anxiety. 34. You regularly do something that gives you instant pleasure, even though you know it will have negative long-term consequences. When you make decisions, you don't usually think of long-term consequences. Your focus is on whether or not it'll make you feel good now. Or B, when you are going through a difficult time, it triggers a strong temptation to grab some instant gratification despite the consequences. 35. You live with the fear that you are a burden to others. A, that makes you afraid to ask for help, afraid that others will see you as weak, needy, or a burden. B, you feel that success is being strong and self-sufficient, not needing anybody. Or C, you're afraid that if you ask for help, it will result in others not wanting to be your friend anymore. 36. You regularly struggle with regulating your emotions, which results in difficulty regulating your behavior when certain emotions are triggered. So A, you can go from 0 to 100 emotionally in a nanosecond. And that often happens when you're angry. It also happens, C, when you feel you've been rejected or you've been made to feel stupid, disrespected, or treated unjustly. Or it happens when you're very afraid or very stressed. 37. You gain your sense of having value from your body or your beauty, B, your brains or your talents, abilities, or accomplishments, C, your job position, your authority, D, your money or your possessions, E, from helping others, or F, how many people want to be your friend due to your humor, your sexual prowess, the gifts you give, your charm, or G, from being the baddest of the bad. 38. You struggle with setting healthy boundaries. You feel guilty if you say no when somebody asks you for something. Or B, people can get you to change your boundaries through guilting you, shaming you, getting angry at you. C, you let unhealthy people into your life too quickly and then are afraid to kick them out. D, you are good at setting boundaries but terrible at enforcing boundaries or sticking to them. E, when you set boundaries for yourself, like changing your eating habits or a new exercise routine or a new daily routine, you do well for a couple days or weeks, then you drift back to the old way. 39. You tend to be controlling. You make decisions for your children and tell yourself it's because you want them to succeed, when the truth might be you're afraid to see them fail. B, you are very demanding of those closest to you. C, you offer unsolicited advice. D, you're not seen by others as a very good team player. E, you feel people need to hear your opinion. And F, you feel that your way is the best. 40. When things are going well, you are afraid to get your hopes up. A, your hopes have been dashed so many times in your life, it feels like torture to start to hope again. B, you feel it is easiest not to get your hopes up at all. That way you don't risk getting your hopes dashed. And C, if good things start happening in your life, it actually starts creating anxiety. 41. You sometimes sabotage good things that are happening in your life. A, good things happening in your life makes you afraid that everything's going to fall apart, because that's always what happened in the past. So you feel that you might as well get it over with. B, you feel it is better to be in the hell you know than to risk the paradise you don't know. 42. You tend to be a people pleaser. A, you don't like people upset with you. B, you hope it will make people like you and want to be your friend if you please them. C, if you were to say no to someone, you would immediately feel guilty and feel that you are not a very loving person. D, you say yes to requests for help when you really wish you could say no, and then sometimes afterwards you have a resentment towards that person. 43. When something out of the normal happens, you quickly go to the worst case scenario in your mind. A, if a friend doesn't answer your phone call, you go to they're mad at you, they're not wanting to be your friend anymore. B, if your boss asks to talk to you, you think it's because you've done something wrong. C, if your child doesn't come home at a specified time. Or D, if the doctor wants to take x-rays of a lump. Or E, if you make a mistake at work, your brain goes to the worst case scenario. 44. You tend to be negative and critical when you're in a new situation. You point out everything wrong with it. Or B, when you're stressed, tired, upset, you just focus on negative, finding something to be negative about, criticizing everything. C, when you meet somebody who's in an authority position or who rubs you the wrong way, you only look for their flaws. 45. You are hypersensitive to criticism or disrespect. A, you often read disrespect into people's body language or even neutral responses like a blank face. Or B, you even see loving, constructive advice or constructive criticism as being negative. 46. You have a deep fear that everybody who gets to know you will abandon you. A, you expect all people who get to know you to abandon you eventually. B, you don't allow yourself to open up totally to anyone because you assume they will eventually abandon you. C, you have never felt that anyone truly delighted in you or wanted a relationship with you just for being you. D, you feel that unless you earn people's love, they will abandon you. 47. You struggle with intimate relationships. So when you're in an intimate relationship, A, you struggle with being present and connecting at a deep level. Or you struggle in being authentic. Or C, you struggle in knowing how to communicate to other people. D, you struggle in knowing how to resolve conflict. That's why intimate relationships are difficult. Or E, you struggle in knowing how to express your needs. Or F, you struggle in knowing how to stand up for yourself. All of those things make intimate relationships a struggle. 48. You are great at starting new tasks or projects, but not so great at finishing them. A, once they lose the excitement or the novelty, which usually happens in a few days or weeks, they quickly become boring. Or B, once there's some difficulties or problems, you lose interest because it's just too hard. Or C, if you don't do a new hobby or interest perfectly, you lose interest. 49. You get lots of anxiety when you face an unknown situation or go through a time of change in your life. A, this can make you more irritable, negative, demanding. Or B, you're tempted to sabotage or quit before you even start or undergo the change. 50. You have a deep longing for external validation. A, that someone would validate your pain and the wrongness of many of the things you have experienced, the things that were done to you. B, that someone would validate your value, that you are beautiful and precious just the way you are. And C, that someone would validate what you're good at, your natural gifts and abilities and personality. 51. You have never felt totally understood, that nobody has ever taken the time and work to get you. A, you were just expected to do what you were told, or B, you were expected to understand what your parents wanted, but they never reciprocated that by trying to understand your hopes, your dreams, who you were. 52. You look back at your relationships and realize that most were characterized not as equals, but with one person being superior to the other. A, that means that one person made most of the sacrifices in the relationship, or more sacrifices than the other. Or B, one person always got what they wanted most or all of the time. It was their way or the highway. Or C, one person was always the first to give in and let the other person have what they want. 53. You have been part of intimate relationships where there's been a double standard. The rules were different for one person in the relationship than they were for the other. So the one person was allowed to check up on you, but not you on them. They could check your phone or your Facebook, but not the other way around. The other person could show certain emotions like anger, but you couldn't. And you couldn't show sadness or fear. C, the other person was allowed their choice of friends and activities, but you weren't allowed the same choices with your friends and activities. 54. You have many parts of your childhood that you have no memory of, significant gaps in your memory. A, part of you wants to remember, but part of you is afraid about what might be in those memories. And B, part of you fears that there must be some pretty bad things in those lost memories. 55. You don't like being alone with nothing to do. You need distractions. A, like being on your phone or playing video games or engaged in some activities. B, you're afraid of the thoughts that might come to your head or the feelings that might surface if you don't have distractions. C, you're afraid that you might have to think honestly about your life, but that makes you feel hopeless because you don't know how to fix it. And so distraction keeps you from thinking those kinds of thoughts. 56. You vowed to never be like your father or mother in certain areas, but you've discovered that you do the things you never wanted to do. You've turned out like them in those areas. And so some of those areas might be how angry they were, or that they were perfectionists, or how critical they were, or negative, or they always went into a victim mentality, and now you find the same things in yourself. Or the way they responded to you when you were hurt or sad or crying, you find sometimes you respond the same way to your kids. Or C, the things you say to yourself in your head, you find are exactly the things your parents said to you, and you hated it when they said those things to you, but now you say those same things to yourself. 57. You don't like the way you are, and your solution is not to persist at the hard work to change who you are, but A, to blame others for your problems. B, look for someone like a counselor or a teacher or a program to fix you. C, look for an easy magic solution that will just quickly fix you and won't require hard work. 58. You don't feel like your age. You may be 40, but you feel that your emotional age is about 10, or that you have the toolkit of a 20-year-old, not a 40-year-old. A, you feel you've stopped growing emotionally at some point and stopped accumulating healthy tools for living. So your body kept getting older, but parts of you stopped growing. B, because of that you don't know who you really are. And C, you don't know how to identify your emotions or handle them. 59. You're not sure what love is. A, you think it's a warm feeling, or you equate sex with love. Or B, you think that loving somebody means something about pain, that it's okay to hurt somebody you love. Or you think loving somebody means that you'll have to lose yourself and become whatever they want. You'll have to stop being an individual. 60. When you are in an intimate relationship, you struggle a lot with jealousy. You think they'll find somebody better than you. Or B, you become obsessed with whether or not they're cheating on you. Or C, you offer a lot of sex, hoping it will keep them interested in you. 61. When a relationship comes to an end, you find it very hard to let go. A, you cyberstalk that person. B, you remained obsessed with them, thinking about them all the time. C, you find it very hard to move on, and sometimes you become very depressed. D, you get angry if you learn that they are dating someone else. E, you sometimes become promiscuous, hoping it will help you forget about them and move on. 62. Sitting in a painful emotion for more than a few minutes is extremely hard for you. A, it triggers you to want to find an escape. B, it triggers anxiety and panic that you might be stuck here. Or C, it feels so unresolvable that it makes you feel hopeless very quickly. 63. You sometimes have these thoughts about yourself. A, that deep down you're just not good enough. You don't measure up. You're less than others around you. B, that in order to get people to like you, you must be willing to go against your needs, your morals, your values, and do whatever they want you to do. C, in order to get people to respect you, you must be perfect. D, in order to get people to respect you, you must be better than everybody else around you. Or E, if people question your advice, you think that they think you're stupid. 64, the final one. You struggle with addiction. You have used drugs, alcohol, activities like food, sex, gambling to give pleasurable feelings. B, to numb painful feelings or to deaden your feelings. C, to help you fit in. D, to make you more outgoing and popular. E, to make you feel connected to people. So how did you do? For some of you, you may have found that you got quite a few of those, and this might feel quite overwhelming and you might feel quite broken. And again, I encourage you to get help. Look into our LIFT program. For others of you, you might see that the first 10 were true of you, which would be definitely indicative of more severe trauma and a lot of work that would need to be done in the months ahead. But again, all of that is just to show you areas that aren't healthy, areas in your life where you've been using the wrong tools. And It's a roadmap for the things that you need to work on to get healthy. So I just hope that this will be helpful to you, because this has been a bit longer today. We're not going to have the Christian part, so I'll sign